our Lord.
Good morning. As I look around here, I think I know most of you, and most of you know me, but I will add a couple other words as background about my own life. My husband and I have been members of this faith community for 26 years. We are also both retired from UCSD, which I add because he and I both have a bee in our bonnet about wanting to dispel the notion that university affiliates aren't concerned and involved in their surrounding community. We care deeply about our community and are both active in it. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to talk with you about what this faith community has been doing over the past year as we've walked alongside asylum-seeking immigrants. Dave said to me when he asked me to speak today, maybe you could tie your comments into your faith. Big challenge for me. I grew up in a tiny, isolated, rural community in the upper Midwest where we were taught, you don't talk about religion, you don't, ever, because it might make other people feel uncomfortable. So you might think, well, that meant you don't talk about religion with people who are clearly from very different backgrounds because you don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. But no, because in that area, there were no other people from other backgrounds. It wasn't until I went off to college at age 18 that I ever met in person someone who was not a Christian from a Northern European background. That first month, I had conversations with Jewish people, with people who were African Americans, with people who were foreign students from Iraq. I was just gobsmacked. I thought, oh my, this is so exciting. But still, I didn't talk about religion. But today, I'm going to rise to the challenge. I'm going to talk about religion, and I'm going to start by laying out my entire set of spiritual beliefs. There it is. Not very long, not very complicated, but it always has seemed to me like it's just enough. That's kind of how I've tried to live my life, and those two sentences have always helped me figure out what's the next step to take here. Plus, it's short, easy to remember. I like that. So, what a perfect segue to talk about what's been going on in this congregation over the past year. You probably remember that in the spring of 2018, a lot of us grew concerned about what we were hearing in the media about children and their parents being separated at our southern borders. Here in the beach area, an informal group formed, and Matt, next slide, began to think about how could we coordinate our efforts to be helpful to these asylum seekers? What could we do? What should we do? Here are the participants from here at Christ Lutheran. It was Pastor Dave, Deacon Taflin Fisher, Sabrina Stern, Mary Swenson, and later me. From Sojourn Grace, the community that meets in here at 11 a.m., Sarah Nichter. From PB Christian, Pastor Brian Daly, Carolyn Hernandez, and Andy Sanders. And then from the Safe Harbors headquarters, and I'll explain what that is, Catherine LaPointe. Safe Harbors is a nonprofit organization that was founded in City Heights 4 years ago and has been assisting asylum seekers since then. It came into existence at the time of the great influx of Haitian refugees fleeing the results of Hurricane Matthew in Haiti in 2016. Our group here in PB began to call ourselves Safe Harbors PB. However, now this is an important point. Over the last year, the headquarters of Safe Harbors in City Heights has reorganized its mission, its focus, and our efforts are no longer affiliated with them. We are a standalone program now, and we have adopted the name Neighbors Together. So you'll hear more of that, Neighbors Together. 2 important points, Matt, about our efforts under the umbrella of Neighbors Together. First of all, none of the asylum seekers we have assisted have broken any laws, none. Second, we have assisted asylum seekers not out of any wish to defy ICE, but because ICE has asked us to do this. Now, why would they do that? Why would they ask us? I have a couple examples to show you. Matt, do you recognize these people? They were here for 3 weeks last fall. This family is from Russia. The 14-year-old boy has diabetes. He needs insulin injections every day, and of course, his insulin has to be refrigerated 7/24. ICE prefers not to deal with any family who has a member who has a critical health condition. There are other kinds of families that ICE prefers not to house, and so it asks nonprofit groups in the area to house them and assist them instead. Here's another example. Maybe you recognize this family. Neighbors Together became a last resort shelter for this family because no other shelter would take them. Too many people. ICE doesn't want to house them, and neither did any other shelter. This is beginning to sound like today's gospel reading, or is it my imagination? No, I think it is. Yeah. Several immigration attorneys have said this family has a credible, compelling asylum claim. But, as you may know if you read the news, having a credible asylum claim doesn't get you very far today unless you also have experienced professional legal help. Last spring, our Neighbors Together coordinating group was trying to figure out how are we going to address that need, professional legal help. And then, just before something terrible happened, the shooting at the Squirrel Hill Synagogue in Philadelphia. And after that, coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, the headquarters of Safe Harbors in City Heights, which was then still operating, received hate mail with threats. And so we decided the better plan was to not draw any publicity to our efforts. And in fact, any mention of this was scrubbed off the Christ Lutheran website. You still won't find anything there about what we've been doing for the past year. As Dave mentioned last Sunday, the ELCA, I always feel like I should stop and explain what ELCA is for people who don't know the drill, the in language. It means Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, which most people interpret to mean, oh, they must be fundamentalists. But no, it means just tell the gospel. So the ELCA, as a nationwide church body, just 2 weeks ago, took a formal, bold step in proclaiming publicly its commitment to walk with immigrants and asylum seekers as our expression of living the biblical teaching to welcome the stranger and to love our neighbor as ourselves. This church body grew out of immigrant roots. I can clearly remember as a 5-year-old attending church with my grandparents where the church service was presented in English, but the coffee hour was in Norwegian. And the only word I understood was ufta, which I've always understood to be the Norwegian counterpart of oy vey. It means the same thing, used the same way as a part of speech. A question for all of you. How many of you come from immigrant families? How many of you, yourselves, your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, do you know your immigration story? I hope so. I heard it a lot when I was growing up. Our Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service program, called LIRS, or LIRS, has, over the past 80 years, welcomed about 500,000 immigrants into this nation. The ELCA and LURS encourage all Lutheran congregations across this nation to extend to our immigrant neighbors what it calls the long welcome, walking with them not only as they arrive in the U.S., but in their adjustment to American life and their efforts to become self-sufficient. Now I have a couple slides showing the long welcome. This is the first group of immigrants that Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services helped. In 1939, I only learned this recently, in that year, 1 out of every 6 refugees worldwide was a Lutheran, fleeing the rise of Nazism in Europe. Now, fast forward to 2010, Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service gave the long welcome to groups as diverse as the Lost Boys of Sudan, shown here, and also those fleeing Burma, now Myanmar, Bhutan, Tibet, and Iraq. On September 8th, I hope all of you will join all of us and our partners in the Neighbors Together program for a shared worship service here at Christ Lutheran. It will be an important step forward in our own long welcome to our newest neighbors. In closing, I'm going to circle back for a brief moment to that isolated, remote, rural area where I grew up and where I saw the world like this, because I was surrounded by people just like me and nobody else. I thank God that in the course of my life, I was able to go off and see some of the world, to meet people, and to meet the people who have come here and to learn about their lives, because it's made my life so much richer, and yours. So now I really will close with words from a song called Colors of the Wind by Judy Kuhn. You think the only people who are people are the people who look and think like you. But if you walk the footsteps of a stranger, you'll learn things you never knew you never knew. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie, and thank you for your leadership as well on this project. Let us join together and sing our response, Lord, keep us steadfast in your word. I invite you to stand as you're able.